What is going on? Welcome back to This or That, an NBA podcast. The cousins are back. We have me, Matt, in the flesh via computer, talking about the Mikal Bridges interview on Paul George podcast P, if you will. Phenomenal look inside the young cat's mind. Matt, I'll kick it to you for a minute, and we'll get in depth.
Yeah, if you guys haven't checked that out, you probably have. If you're watching our video, you're probably watching Paul George's video. But if you haven't, check it out. If you're a Nets fan, great interview. But I think if you're going to be the one to dissect this interview,
I will.
It was like the stuff he said should give you a lot of hope.
Yeah, I love all that out of him. I love picturing him as Paul George, if that makes sense. I just think he has a lot more potential than people are realizing. The kid loves to play. I love the grit he has in him when he's talking about being from Philly and talking about like how they passed on him. He thinks about that shit every day. I love that he seemed like a normal dude, like a jokester. He's walking around the arena and he's like, this is my home. Like, I'm going to be here. And then he gets traded the next day. That's fucking hilarious, dude. And just embracing the city and embracing a situation like that. Like, I don't know what I would do if I was in his shoes. That's a crazy, like, change of life. I mean, obviously he had his twin to come with him, but I just respect the hell out of that from a young dude. And we'll get into some details later from the interview, but I liked him talking about, you know, like the connection he had with his mom. I liked him talking about like how he wanted to be a teacher when he's done and make $30K, doesn't give a fuck. I thought that was dope. He just seemed like an absolute beast. And the way he was talking about, which is what I want to get into right now, the way he was talking about, oh, if I get 30, we'll win. Like having that realization as a player and never being able to get 30 in high school, in college, like finally crossing over the hump that's like, if my team wants to win tonight, I got to go get 30. That was really interesting to hear. Not only my favorite player on my favorite team talk about, just any NBA player, any hoop head, just like get in depth about that kind of mental battle. So dope.
Yeah, like, well, he kind of touched on before the trade, like everyone on the Suns was hurt, and he was kind of forced into being the guy that scored 20 points. Like he was always just talking about how he just wanted to be efficient. My shots will come, all that kind of stuff.
I'll make what I get.
And that's good. And like, he was a role player in Phoenix. Like he was,
but he was a fantastic role player.
Yeah. One of the best in the league. Like we were talking about each of our teams wanting to trade for him prior to this trade even happening. But I think that kind of shift where he was kind of forced to be the guy is another reason why he's as good in Brooklyn, or like had such a good start in Brooklyn that he had. Like, you don't just go from a team where you're the fourth option to being the first option with no prior experience whatsoever and then be expected to score 30 points a game. You don't have the confidence to do that, let alone actually be able to do it.
100%.
Like, God, he was saying how he works on that kind of stuff, like off the dribble, like moving shots, creating for himself. That stuff, if you don't work on that and you're a role player and you get forced into a new team being the one, like,
he was ready.
Yeah, and he was super ready for it, which I thought was really interesting to hear because obviously guys work on everything in the NBA, but being able to go, and I think the most important thing that you can work on it, but it comes way slower than a skill, is confidence. Like being able to be confident enough to go out there and be like, okay, I need to score 30. I need to get this guy involved here. I need this to go here. I need to defend this way. I need to attack this guy this way because this is how I would defend. All that stuff, like, it's super, super important. And for a guy that I thought was like 28, 29, he's 26.
Yeah, he's a young 26. Hold your horses. Are you seriously enjoying this fire content without liking, commenting, and subscribing? We're glad you're here at This or That NBA podcast. We want you to stick around. It's easiest to do that by liking, commenting, and subscribing. It's free. It takes 1 second, and we really appreciate it. Thanks for your time.
Like, that's insane to me.
He's a special talent. I really like the way also when role players turn into stars, they're able to articulate, like, I remember a specific example he was talking about. If I could get Doe a 3 in the corner, yeah, it'll get him going and everything. Like, that's great. He'll start making shots and seeing shots go in. But it's more just in the sense of, like, I remember getting that one in the corner. So, like, when you have that fresh in your mind, like, I just love that grit. That's so different than, like, the KD, Kyrie type shit. That's just a gritty young guy. Like, I remember that one corner. Look, I'm going to get that to Doe. Or, like.
Yeah. It's like when, like, because when you're in that situation and you're that guy that's sitting in the corner or making a back cut, you know when you want the ball and like when it should be there, and like you're like, damn, I kind of wanted that one. But if you were that guy from day one, and like now you're being handed the keys, you know when guys want, you know when
It was
people
so
want it
nice to
there.
hear him talk about that.
So like that's super super helpful, especially as the guy that said kept harping on he wants that trip dub.
Bro, and that's what I was talking about when I said he's the one. Now, I don't mean he's our designated point guard. I just mean he's like going to be distributing a lot, and he's going to be conducting the offense in like a. I mean, I'm more confident with him and with the ball in his hands than anybody else. But like, dude, even just the hunger, like talking about that triple double, he was talking about. I was going to do the throw it off the backboard, get an O-reb. All I needed was that assist because I'll go get the board. Like, I'll chase down, I'll jump over Nick and get the board. Like, I love the mental. Like, I hate dudes who at the end of the game, they're like, oh, I had 40. Oh, I had – nah, dude, he's got every stat. Like, he's like – that's a role player thing, though. So,
Yeah.
like –
It's how can you make an impact on the game without having to overexert your role? And I think that's what the cardinal rule of a role player is. And if you can replicate that into being the number one option on a team, that will take you places for sure.
I love the way he talked about Cam as well. Johnson and Thomas. We'll talk about Thomas first. Talking about like, oh yeah, when Cam gave them 40 the game before, and Paul George was like, oh yeah, I think he gave us 46 the game before that, and they got to practice, and Mikal was like, yeah, like he's just a young kid, I don't know. He sees him taking those, and I always talk about that left foot, left hand, right foot, right hand, off balance, and Cam's making them all in practice, and Mikal's like, oh shit, like this kid's tough. That was also dope to hear about because I know Cam beat KD in one-on-one. That video, like from 2 years ago, I know for a fact he beat him in one-on-one. I know it was post-ups, so it wasn't like check ball up top, and that's how KD was able to get out of it. So I know Cam is a practice demon. Anytime I hear any stories about Cam in practice, I'm geeked. So him taking 1 foot runners, banking them without touching the rim, like that's tough.
Yeah, I just think it was good to hear, especially for you because you're a big Cam Thomas guy. It was good to hear him kind of talk about him who wasn't
so highly of him.
Yeah, who wasn't really – he doesn't really play, which is kind of crazy because, like, when we saw him play, he was insane. But I think it was good to hear him talk about that. And then the other guy, Ben Simmons, I think he was speaking very highly. Yeah, very highly. And I
love hearing Ben's got a ball in his hands, bro. And that's just so weird to hear the media contradict that where they're talking about, like, oh, he practiced with his phone in his pocket. It just shows you how the perception of the media can totally change how you think about somebody. The kid's walking around like neat with a ball in his hands all day, walking around the facility, walking around the office, like he's just got a ball in his hands.
Yeah, and he's saying that like he's actually healthy now. And you know when we were both kind of, I don't know, more me than you, but when the Harden for Ben Simmons trade happened, I was kind of really excited for the Nets because I thought Ben Simmons was going to be the same guy that he was in Philly, and he hasn't been yet. But I'm not ready to give up on Ben. I know you're kind of in the give up on Ben camp.
No, I'm back now after the interview. Talking about the validity of him finding out that he actually needed back surgery. And I understand this from just an anxious perspective of like, everybody else now knows I was serious. I needed to get surgery on this. I think that took a lot of weight off his shoulders, as in like a lot of people thought he was capping.
Yeah.
So to have to actually get surgery in the offseason to be like, see, look, I told you this wasn't fake. Like I needed this. I think that's big for him.
Yeah. And I just like we were saying early last season when it first all started out and Ben was like having a couple games, we were like, oh man, he might be back. He might be back.
It's still in there, bro.
It's definitely still in there. And I think Mikal is like, he just seems like a very personable guy. Like just from the interview, like he seemed very outgoing. Like
he's the man, dude. Big smile.
Yeah. Like he just seems like a joyful guy. And I think that's kind of something that Ben needs. Like I just think
it rubs off in the locker room.
Yeah. And I just think we kind of saw another podcast P episode, but with Draymond Green. I don't know if you watched that one, but Draymond was saying how he kind of just lost confidence in his shot altogether. Yep. And he's been working on getting it back for 3 years. So is Ben Simmons, just in his like aggressiveness and like tenacity. And like that stuff is not easy to like work back from. Like once you lose confidence, like it's tough to come back. And that's why all the best players are like supremely confident because they are delusionally confident in a way.
Mental problems can cause physical
Yeah.
I 100% agree with that. I was agreeing with that the whole time. I was just giving him shit because it was popular opinion, but like, I'm just glad to see all the validity to his issues and him kind of be like, see, told you guys. I don't know. I think he's got a lot to prove. And like, I just randomly saw a TikTok of his high school tape, bro. Like you don't just do that and then like wake up one day and not do that anymore. He like some of those clips are fucking unreal.
Yeah, and like also like back injury, there's serious injuries. Like a back injury.
Bro had to get
basketball,
surgery on his spine.
Yeah, like those are serious stuff. And like I was surprised we didn't really see Paul George mention this in the interview. I was kind of waiting for it, but I was thinking how he was kind of talking about like how it takes a while to get back from an injury. This is what Mikal was saying. Like he's never had like a serious injury, but like you lose confidence in your body to do certain things. Like when you tear an ACL, you break an arm, like that kind of stuff.
Movement, like you're scared to make that step.
Yeah. So like I was surprised we didn't see Paul George kind of talk about it with his leg more when he snapped his leg. But like that stuff just takes time and you have to regain confidence in that. Like it's kind of just all that stuff that makes you a good NBA player. Like you have to trust yourself, trust your body, trust your game, like all that kind of stuff. And I think Ben is just working back from that. And if he plays up to his Philly standard or gets close to that, like the Nets could be something pretty special.
Yeah, I like it. I don't know. It was just good to hear that like they're all on the same page, they're all locked in, and we're ready to come out this year and fight. I'm rooting harder than ever.
Yeah, and let's give Cam some PT, free CT.
It's been free CT for almost a year now. It's been free CT. It's been free CT for 2 years, but it's been an official public TOT campaign for almost a full year now. It's been November, coming up on November. So
yeah, but that's a wrap for this video, guys. If you liked it and stayed this long, you liked what we had to say, subscribe to a fellow Nets fan. Subscribe.
Check this banner out, foo.
Trying to get to 100 subs.